Does everybody understand what an IEP is? Okay. I'll start off by saying this. I'm going to probably sound kind of crazy. I'm very happy with how last Wednesday went. The state came in and they monitored, audited 20 different IEPs. Does everybody understand what an IEP is? Okay. Individualized education plan. And in each plan, there are numerous areas where you can get hit for a citation. One IEP does not equal one corrective action. There's multiple layers of an IEP, and when you look at that, some of these IEPs could have up to 50, 60 areas where you can be penalized. For us to only have 19 student-level corrective actions out of the 20 IEPs, I felt was very good. When you look at the overarching report of this, one or two of our kids' IEPs where most of the violations took place. So to me, that's pretty solid. Multiple county schools go through this every couple years. This was not a regularly scheduled audit, okay? With everything that had been occurring, NC-RESA called the state and had them come in to run this. I've been in the business 34 years. I've never seen 5 monitors show up to a district. We had 5 monitors show up last Wednesday. They conducted interviews of 7 staff members and reviewed 20 IEPs. And they were here from 8 a.m. until roughly 4 p.m. All right. The first question I've got, is the report available? Yes, it is available now. If you want to come in and look at it, I can show it, but we are not going to release that to the public, okay?
Well, aren't there student names?
Yeah,
in there?
I mean, it involves student names and things like that, so we can't release that.
Is it going to be foilable or you're back to you?
Well, it could be, yeah. Were any violations found, and whose oversight does that fall under? With student-level corrective actions, it falls on the case manager. Usually that is the teacher of record. Okay, as you heard me say, we had 19 student-level corrective action plans. Is Jordan Bullinger investigation referenced in the internal investigation report still ongoing? No, it's not. And I'll talk to this. This was completely a separate incident situation from the audit. This was to determine how much compensatory ed we owed students that were on a certain teacher's caseload last year. That was what that was for. He was helping us determine what we owed and moving forward the best plan so we could communicate with the parents on that when we contacted them. And has the MDE NC-RESA ever conducted a similar investigation at GPS in the past? Yeah, we get these every couple of years. We get an audit, we get monitoring, just to make sure that we're following the proper procedures and processes. It's not anything that's out of the normal. It just wasn't our turn to get that this time around until this situation occurred. Is the MDE audit in response to the district's investigation, or is it simply regular oversight? Most years, I would agree it is. This time around, no. NC-RESA called them in and asked them to do this. What kind of information is the MDE looking for? Well, when they do an audit, they're looking for behavioral. They're looking for aids and service, supplemental aids and services. Does the IEP match the contact hours that it was written for? Those are the things they're looking for. Why was the investigation handled by our lawyer rather than NC-RESA? Okay. Ultimately, NC-RESA is the gatekeeper for all things special ed. When you have something going on where you're talking compensatory ed, possible lawsuits, they are not going to be involved. Neither will the MDE. You get with your attorney first to find out what the damages are and what you can do to make it right by your families. Okay? That was the direction the board took. And once that investigation began, it had to play out. We had to know what we were into and how we could correct it. Are there other issues happening in our special ed education services at this time? Not to my knowledge. I think this was the final piece of the puzzle. We've got to fix some things, and then we're good to move on. Final one, is our lawyer still investigating any issues? Not to my knowledge. At this stage, we're done with our attorneys, and we're moving forward with our compensatory aid and making the kids' IEPs whole. All right, that's all I've got for the pre-questions. Like I stated, if you guys that submitted these questions, there's probably 8 or 9 that I didn't answer because they don't specifically talk to the MD audit. If you guys want to set an appointment up, I would love to sit down and talk to you. Okay?
Excellent.
All right, what do you have for me?
Okay, so moving forward, how will IEP hours be monitored?
Well, IEP hours are always monitored by the caseload provider, the teacher, okay? And when you do that, when you cross-reference with attendance, your attendance has to be accurate. You've got to be able to know when the kid is in the classroom, when they're not, and that way we can monitor those hours and it can be tracked much easier.
How will monthly monitoring of IEPs to document and show hours?
Okay. Well, that's an interesting question. Was that's yours? All right, it's kind of funny. We met with the admin team today and we talked about how can we better service our kids and how can we better help our teachers to track this. One of the discussion items, and probably the one that's going to occur, we have a special ed secretary in our district. Right now she's housed at the middle school. She splits time between middle school secretarial duties and special ed. One of the thoughts, we're going to move her to the admin building, free her up to be able to meet weekly to track this with the teachers, to do reviews, to sit down and keep this in line so we can monitor it better. Just another layer of progress monitoring on the IEPs.
Okay. Can you please clarify the money that is allotted to each student with IEPs or disabilities? How is that money used? Does that go just to the student? How does that work?
No, I mean, it's just like any other kid. I mean, we've got special ed kids, we've got general ed students. They all are allotted the money. When you have a situation where you've got a violation has occurred and you may have to spend some money on compensatory ed, that money is typically taken out of the general fund. So it impacts every kid. There's not just, a special ed student is not just affected by a special ed violation. All kids are. And that's the negative impact on every student. Okay? And that's why I think as a district, we have to get it right. Okay, and I'm going to say something else that's probably you're going to look at me cross-eyed. I think we run probably the best special ed program in the county. Some of you guys probably don't agree with that. We do. And we've prided ourselves in the past on we are in compliance and we do things the right way. And I guess that's why I struggle with this, because this is kind of my wheelhouse. I look, these kids, they're all my kids when it comes to the special ed department. They're all of our staff's kids. They're all of our administrators' kids. And I look at the services and the things we do for this population. We do a nice job with this, and it's hard. When you're dealing with discipline problems of the magnitude and the academic needs that these kids have, we do a nice job. And it's unfortunate that we've been painted by the brush that we've been painted. And it's tough to get out of that hole, but we're going to work to do that. Okay, any more?
Yes. Do all special ed teachers have the proper certification to teach special ed, or are they meeting their yearly requirements to remain eligible?
All right, I'm going to say this tongue in cheek. Do any of our teachers have the proper certification in today's world? I can answer that. Yeah, not all of them have the proper certification. Do we try to have every one of them that does? Absolutely. But with the teacher shortage we have, it is a challenge. We don't have all of our gen ed teachers that have the proper certification right now. We're working on that. We've got different programs in place so they can get that. But that's just the world we're in. When we used to post a job, you get 30 or 40 candidates for that job. Today, you might get one. Heck, you might get two. Yes.
because they
Correct it.
aren't properly certified. We may have some on sub-permit. We may have
Okay,
some on-
we'll clarify that. They are properly certified, but they may have a sub-permit or something like that. I took that question as, are they degreed and do they have their permanent teaching certificate? All right. We may have teachers on sub-permits, okay? But to me, we need everybody with a teaching certificate. That'd be the best world, right? But in the world we live in right now, that's not possible.
Okay. Was it only the high school audited, or was the middle school included? If not, why?
All 4 buildings were audited. Does anybody want to clarify on that one? I mean, that's kind of a short answer.
Did they also confirm who is completing IEPs rather than having contacted that information and that the people handling those are the certified people who should be?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yep. Okay. A sub-permit certification is if we have a person in that position. Say they have a degree and they say they're a math teacher. They're certified to teach math. To be a special ed teacher, you've got to have special ed certification. We've got some people that do not. They're in the process of getting it. So in that window, we do a sub-permit so they're legal to teach in that classroom. Okay?
Working to get them proper certification. We work specifically with the Department of Education and special ed departments to get those certifications, to make sure those teachers are legally able to teach in those classes.
Did everybody hear that? And we are not alone, okay? Most of your districts right now are operating on the same process. You know, I've got a good friend that teaches at Central. Right now, Central Michigan University's special ed department is 2/3 of what it was 5 years ago. I did a presentation up there in December, and this was to a class of 19 graduating seniors. They were going to graduate in April. Out of those 19, every single one of those kids already had a job. Every one of them had gotten a signing bonus between $10,000 and $25,000. Okay? That is what we are up against in the special ed realm right now. There is such demand for that field, and there's such a shortage.
Did they review funding and payments during this audit? Why did the board spend $26,000 to look at potential payouts before any discrepancies were discovered? 2 questions.
Repeat that, would you?
Okay, first question. Did they review funding and payments during the audit?
No, they did not. It was strictly student-driven IEPs.
Second question. Why did the board spend $26,000 to look at potential payouts before, in capital letters, any discrepancies were discovered?
Payout, I got to be clear on that. Payouts to who?
There's been a lot of talk about compensation.
All right. The comp ed piece, we didn't really know what we were into on that, okay? We had to look at the amount of time that went in, how many hours the students were shorted, if they were shorted. And we wanted to make sure that we were not going to get sued. We wanted to make sure that we were doing the right things to make sure.
In the audit that they did?
What now?
Is that different in the audit?
Yeah, they're two separate things, yes. Yep.
Do you have another question? No? How does a substitute work for special ed? Do you have to be certified to sub a special ed class, and how long can they sub for?
Well, typically, they don't have to be certified in the special ed classroom. Just as long as they're certified to be a sub, they're good. You know, as a district, you don't want to have somebody in a special ed classroom 30, 40 days. There's not a number on it. I think it's the intent of what you're doing to provide the services for the kid or for the students. having a long-term sub in there for 2-3 months is probably not the best practice. You want, that's all right.
I've been dealing with this for 2 years with shortages of special ed teachers. So when we do have a teacher that doesn't have proper certification, they'll be put in a classroom as a sub, and you can only sub so many days on that, and then it gets extended. If that teacher shows that they are in a program and it is approved by the Department of Ed in that program, that sub permit can continue to be extended. So then the next year you're on an extended sub permit, or it's not called an emergency permit, but they will extend that if you can prove that teacher is in a program working towards that endorsement for that classroom. They've created these situations because of the teacher shortage in the special ed. We don't have anybody that's on a short-term sub permit. We have teachers working towards those endorsements who are in those programs and who are committed in those classrooms.
So if they're in those classrooms, they're in those classrooms with a special ed teacher? Correct. Okay. Next question. What is NC RESA's responsibility to address or follow up on the 19 student level corrective actions?
Well, they're going to work with us on, let me rephrase this, I guess. Out of those 19, some are students that we are responsible for, so therefore we are the ones who got dinged on it. We've got situations where ancillary staff from NC RESA was not providing services. They've got some of their staff that had some issues also, but because we are the local district, we are the ones that are going to be doing these, okay? So their responsibility is this: they're going to come in side by side, and they're going to help our teachers come up with the student level corrective action plans. And then we upload them into Catamaran, and we do that as a team.
When an IEP has accommodations, typically it states special ed room / general ed. When accommodations are in general ed, are your parapros trained to assist the students?
Well, we would hope they would be. I mean, that's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but it just depends on what the parapro is, what level of training has occurred. That's the ideal situation. You do have the parapro in the room that is trained and make sure the kid does have the accommodations. But I'll throw a curveball. So you have a substitute teacher and a substitute parapro. What are the chances those accommodations are going to get done that day? Follow where I'm going with that? I mean, it's a challenge. Every day is a challenge with that. Number one, our goal is to have our parapros trained with it and have our teachers trained, but it doesn't always work out that way. It depends on who's in the classroom on that day.
Does everyone that interacts with kids with IEPs read and follow their IEPs? Do they have access to the IEPs so that they know what the accommodations are that they are to provide?
Well, we got to be careful with that one. We've got things we've got to look out for. Teachers and parapros do have access.
What?
Teachers and parapros.
If a teacher is on maternity leave, are they still teacher of record? If so, how would they know students' attendance?
They are the teacher of record. And they wouldn't probably, I mean, they're expected to check the attendance. They've got, Skyward, the student management system.
Okay.
And hopefully they're in communication with the substitute in the room.
Okay.
Well, when you're in the special ed realm, I don't think we have anybody that doesn't work when they're off. I mean, no, it's not expected, but that's just what we do here. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a teacher here that was gone for an extended period not checking with the sub and not helping with lesson plans. That's just from my experience in the middle school when I was there. I don't think anybody requires it. I mean, we don't require it. That's just what the service our people do. Okay? I don't know about other districts. I don't have a clue what they do. I would assume in the special ed world, you're checking on your kids. I've never had that problem. So, well, I would probably make sure the substitute teacher is getting the supports from her special ed PLC, her team, and getting the information that she needs from them.
Simply knowing the attendance is one aspect of the services, but you don't know the day-to-day interactions in the classroom to know if the specific plan in the IEP is followed, if you're the teacher of record and you're on leave. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that is very true. Yep.
Why would we not put a different teacher on record during that time?
Because she's responsible for the caseload. I mean, that's,
So who is responsible for following up to ensure the caseload is handled correctly while there's a leave of absence?
well, the building administrator would be one. I mean, I'd start there.
So it'd be the principal of the
Yep.
building?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any overlap between Michigan Department of Education audit findings and Jordan Bullinger investigation to assess liability compensatory ed? If so, what were the findings?
There was none. There was no overlap. Nope. Two separate things.
So are these substitute teachers getting sub-pay or teacher pay?
Well, if they're a substitute teacher, they're getting sub pay.
Are we in danger of being sued for compensatory issues, or does this report clear this up? If yes, how much is estimated to cost the district?
Okay, this report, we're going to have 6 instances of compensatory ed off the MD report that just occurred Wednesday. Okay, that's one issue. The Jordan Bullinger situation, that's a completely different thing. So are we in danger of being sued? I would say you're always in danger of being sued. Are we? I don't think so. Do we have a plan in place to make things right for the families? Yes.
Do you have any more questions? No? Yep.
You mentioned that as secretary, you're looking at adjusting that role and responsibilities so she can focus more on working with the teachers. So does that mean the coordinator position is being eliminated and then it will just be the secretary and then the MC research director?
Well, I mean, I don't know, I'll answer this one. I probably will get kicked later for this, but right now, what you guys, there's a lot of questioning about what that coordinator does, right? And being I'm the coordinator, I'm sure a few of you guys have a lot of questions. We can talk about that. It is a stipend position. What my job is I deal in catamaran, okay? Every year they're called B13s. That is where we check in, we do 13 IEPs, transitional IEPs at the high school. Our teachers put them all together, we upload into catamaran. If we have a corrective action, we upload it into catamaran, okay? I sit in on the difficult IEPs. But mainly that job is to be a liaison between NC RISA and our teachers and manage the catamaran system, okay? So what we're talking about right now, I mean, I'm handling that piece right now, but NC RISA probably in the future, I mean, we've got to have that middleman. Every district, at least, that I know of, has that person to do the catamaran and do that type of thing. So I don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, I plan on doing it regardless if I'm being paid for it or not. But the secretary, that's just basically to make sure that we have another layer of checks and balances. Okay? Yeah, and I mean, thanks a lot for that. I don't have an experience of anybody not doing that, to clarify. I don't know, just that's what the people in the middle school did when I was there. Joe, I don't know what the high school does, but from my understanding, they pretty much do the same thing. Somebody's out, they communicate with that sub. I've never had one of my special ed teachers, or really even one of my general ed teachers, be put on an island. They collaborate, they work together, and they support one another.
I think there's another question. No? Do we have another question? Okay.
Man, this feels like she's taking a test, or I'm taking a test. I always do.
There you go. All right. Were the 6 violations that may need compensation in the high school, the middle school, or other buildings, how will the administration in these buildings with violations be addressed to avoid this again in the future? That's a good question.
Well, yeah, you want to be able to do checks and balances, but a couple of the compensatory ed are not providing ancillary services, okay? We don't provide ancillary services. So that one. The other ones, it's a struggle. We've got a couple situations. I mean, I knew when the MDE sent us the list of kids they were going to pull the 20 IEPs, I knew we were going to have some trouble. When you're dealing with some of the behaviors that we have, anybody in administration or teaching in the special ed realm is going to tell you, the student who has had multiple suspensions, expulsions, you've done different interventions, it's hard to track all the paperwork that goes along with that. What it comes down to is volumes and volumes of paperwork, and we had a couple things that were missed. So,
I have a couple of questions. First of all, which buildings were the violations?
we had one at the middle school, one at the elementary, and the others were at the high school.
And this seems to be a repeat issue. Do we not have checks and balances? Then you said we've gone through this before and had.
Well, every school goes through this. I mean, every district. It's not a grant thing, okay?
But saying it happens isn't really a plan.
No, we come up, it's called a corrective action plan, and we put that in place.
So what is the corrective action plan for the admins in the buildings that were responsible for the checks and balances?
Well, these are student correctives, so the,
The admin isn't responsible for making.
right, yeah, they will. But the teachers, first of all, the process is this. They will get with NC Risa, the supervisor will come in. They will come up with that corrective action plan, and once that is done, is put in place, implemented, then the administrative team sees it, okay?
And then one more follow-up question. If you knew when you got the list that you expected issues with these students, why were they not addressed prior to being audited if there were trouble?
Well, as soon as the list came out, the audit started. If I were to do that, that'd be very unethical, wouldn't it?
To work with NC for additional support for you?
No, I didn't see, no, we didn't know the kids until the MD released the list to us. One,
You saw that you knew that there would be problems with those kids.
you would think, well, you just seeing who they were and what the IEPs were, yeah, you would think, oh boy, we're going to have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed with the number of, instances within that one IEP or two IEPs. Well, at that point, no. At that point, no, because we're already in the audit piece. So,
In general, if I have a child who has an IEP, and you guys are having difficulty meeting their IEP requirements.
oh yeah, all right, yes, yeah. Oh heck yes, they've got ancillary. Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, they're involved with it just as much as we are. Social workers, autistic, yeah, they've got all those services that are open to us, and we utilize them.
And the ancillary services you mentioned, can you explain what ancillary services?
Well, it's a speech pathologist, a school psychologist, OT.
You don't provide those in our district?
NC Risa does all of that. Yeah, they provide all the ancillary staff.
With the violations
No, we're the local. Nope, it's us. It's our kid.
So if we don't provide them, but we're held responsible for them, what's the chain of command to get that service provided?
Well, you go to NC, I mean, it's written in the IEP. That's, they evaluate, they qualify students. We do not. They've got a school psychologist to start the process.
So we've done our stuff on our side and they didn't share, how are we held responsible?
We're the local school district. It's our child. Isn't that crazy how that works? Huh? Well, we may not even have knowledge of that. It may be a speech and language child that doesn't have any academic needs.
It would be in their IEP. It wouldn't be a violation if it wasn't in their IEP.
Well, if it was in their IEP that they needed speech and language and it wasn't provided, that's a violation. Yeah. Well, but if it's, now, hold on. If it's just speech and language, that's an ancillary staff. That person, that student never is on anybody in my building's caseload or Joe's building or Carol's.
Even though they have an IEP, it's not.
Correct. Well, it is, but it's on the ancillary staff's caseload.
So we're responsible, but we don't have any.
That's our student.
We fill out the paperwork and we do the IEP.
No, they walk through our doors. That's how that works. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, I know. No, I know it doesn't make sense, but because it's our student, we're ultimately responsible for that need. We may not even know it, but we're on the hook for it. Okay? Here's another one. You get a student from Cedar Springs whose IEP has been expired for 2 months. Okay, you really want to get confused? We get a kid from Cedar Springs. IEP was past due in Cedar Springs. He transfers into the high school. Who's on the hook for that violation? We are.
Is that not handled during the transition paperwork?
Too late. You're 2 months past due. It's on us.
Wouldn't the parent then have to be responsible for requesting an IEP?
You would have thought, yes. Yes. I know, it's on them. Yeah, but the state still penalizes us. Yes.
Review or any ancillary services that aren't being provided, is it not also the parent's responsibility to say, hey,
Yep.
my kid is not receiving this.
Yep.
I want a meeting.
Absolutely. Call the staffing immediately and say, this is in the IP, this is what I need. Yep. Okay.
Reviews are done yearly. But
Yeah, annually. Yep, annually.
that doesn't mean that there's changes, but if something's not happening, I'm not just gonna send my kid in and say, oh, my thing's done. And then
I would hope not. I would hope not. I'm one of those guys, I don't mind the phone call from the parent. I actually want that parent advocating. And most importantly, I think we've got to teach our kids how to advocate for themselves.
that can also be a goal, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have a question to follow up with her, the IEP and the behavioral issues that you had stated.
Yeah.
It probably has some issues because of this. So with the IEP, there's behavioral and then there's education.
Yep, academic.
So academic. So if there's behavioral issues that are ongoing, repetitive, is that where we kind of drop the paperwork?
Well, right now, there's a huge emphasis in the state on not suspending kids, okay? And I know this is really confusing for you guys. It's confusing for me, and I work in the world. Every few years, we change the emphasis the Department of Ed does. Right? A couple years ago, it was supplemental aids and services. You've got to change the way you're writing that IEP. Well, here's the problem. We've got a kid in the system for 5 years. This is what the process has been for 5 years. Now, all of a sudden, oh, we have to change the way we're doing this. Boom, we just got dinged on a monitor. We've got a corrective action. Right now, it's discipline. They do not want to see kids being suspended. We've got restorative practices, we've got interventions, we've got a gazillion things they want you to try. And, I'm not going to name names, but a couple districts within our county just went through the same process this fall, and they got rung up. And it was all about just the emphasis on special ed discipline has changed in the last 2 years. Okay? So it's a moving target. It really is. And you just hope that you get the training. I mean, we just had a big training in the fall on supplemental aids and services for all of our special ed teachers. You know? So it's just kind of a moving target that we hope we hit most of the time and set the processes up so we can do it.
So the state's pretty much setting you up to fail.
No, it's politics, the MD, what the new flavor is, you know, and it's not a knock, that's just the business. It's been that way forever.
As coordinator, were you, Mr. Aiken, aware of gaps in meeting the students' needs and potential violations?
Well, you're always aware of gaps and you try to close the gaps. I mean, that's an ongoing process, whether it's special ed or gen ed. You know, was I aware of the 20 kids on the list? No, I mean, you hope they're doing well. I didn't even know the 20 kids they were going to pull off the list until 5 days before the audit. But that's the challenge. We're always trying to close the gaps and make sure the paperwork's being done correctly.
So do they only take 20 kids?
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask, how many special ed students do you have?
Jeez, right now, district-wide, right around 262, I believe.
So they're only 20 with the 20, so there's
Yep.
a lot out there then. That's compliant.
Oh, yeah, heck, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, they looked at 20 and they only found, no, there could be. But it's a shot of the bow, over the bow. Here's what you have, and now, you know, what's our process? We're going back, our special ed teachers are going into their caseloads, and they're looking for all the things we got flagged for and making the corrections. Example of what? Well, all right. Well, this is one we got flagged on. We have special ed students have accommodation logs. And accommodation logs are very cumbersome. Every kid on that teacher's caseload has a weekly, daily accommodation log. So say I have extra time on my homework, I can use a calculator, I can take a test in a small group, I get a break every 10 minutes. That's on a Google sheet. And we have to track that. Every single time that accommodation was offered, we put A, accepted, D, declined. Or you can put a check, or you can leave it blank. I mean, that's the ambiguity of it. Okay? Now, if the student declines that, you put a D. If you don't hit that 100%, say you missed a day, or you missed a week, you're out of compliance. Okay? These are not huge things. Trust me. They're very small, but when you have the process, you have to follow the process. Is that a good enough example? Okay. Yeah, a major issue is called a district CAP, corrective action plan. Okay? And then you've got a student level. And the student levels are typically a slap on the hand, fix it. And that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
You didn't get any of the big ones, they're all the small ones.
Right now, they're all the small ones.
They're all small right now.
Right now. We're still waiting on a couple other things, but.
We're gonna
that's-
wrap
those are-
this up,
Those are
so-
separate issues, so.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I just got distracted because she asked a little bit I'm still hung up on the teacher might not know what is an accommodation. I understand the teacher might not be responsible for scheduling or tracking my speech.
Well, no, they know there's accommodation, but like,
You know, I sat there on IEP meetings, speech language are there, teacher, depending on the grade level, multiple teachers. So like everybody knew a student was involved in an IEP, right?
right, yeah.
Just saying they might be.
Well, all right, say you were in fifth hour, Jimmy punches Johnny in the face. You have to have the principal come in, remove both students. Cindy's on the ground crying. You slipped your mind.
Well, the speech language, ancillary services.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I'm not talking about,
Oh, okay.
accommodating behaviors. I'm stuck on the, teacher might not know a student has an IEP. I feel like a teacher should always know that there's an IEP.
Well, but if it's not an academic IEP, Josh, we don't The school does not, because we don't deal with the ancillary staff, we don't hire them, we don't oversee them, our teachers may not know that.
What if determining the IEP eligibility at the very start of IEP services, determining special ed eligibility, isn't the teacher of record there?
Typically, but what if that student's in 7th grade now?
So, so that there seems like
Huh?
there could be a process improvement of flagging so that way things like that aren't missed and then you have an opportunity.
I understand that, but
Are IEPs not reviewed and updated?
every single year.
So it doesn't matter if they lose a grade.
If it's a speech and language, our teachers aren't typically there at the secondary levels.
So the IEPs are not handled within our district.
Not, they're in our district, but there's not a special ed teacher there.
They're not done here in our building.
Yeah, they are.
But their teacher of record is not included.
If it's a speech and language, ancillary staff kids, okay? There is no teacher of record.
Okay, but somebody in our building is doing that IEP. Who is doing that?
The ancillary staff from NC RISA.
So the
this-
ancillary staff from NCS that comes to our building
Yes.
and does that.
Yep.
But is anyone in our building aware of the IEP that would be tracking those or that would be aware?
Not always, yeah. Typically, yes, but not always.
Should there be?
Should be. They should be notified of it, absolutely. You got to understand, we just had a new speech pathologist start this year. We had one leave in May or June, and a new one came in.
But that doesn't do anything to the paperwork. It's still there for the student.
Well, if you can't find the paperwork, does it really exist?
So it sounds like there's a lot of holes and issues being dealt with here within our building that should be handled. The teacher, I mean, somebody needs to be aware. Why is no one here in our school aware that a student has an IEP? Or especially if we're being penalized for that. If I know I'm going to be penalized for something that someone else is doing, that I have access to that and it's partially my job, I would be handling that and making sure it's handled so that I don't, my team doesn't get.
Oh, I agree with that 100%, but that's not how it happens all the time.
That's the
If I had that answer, if I had that answer, it would never happen, okay? But it just does. New people come in, people leave, and you hit it. There's a crack in the communication sometimes. I thought I told you earlier. I handle catamaran. I sit in on hefty IEPs. I oversee the B13s, the transition IEPs. That's it. I don't track. I do not, the caseload provider, the teacher.
But there's no teacher of record, you said, right?
Well, in that situation, then it'd be the supervisor from NC RISA.
NC RISA, yeah.
But who within our school is being held responsible? That's what I'm trying to get at. Who is-
Well, there really isn't anybody. I mean, that's just it. That's the whole issue.
So
There,
if I reach out to NC Risa, they'll tell me there is nobody within the school that is being responsible for making sure that people are aware of that.
yeah, I mean, you can reach out to them. I'd be curious to see what their answer is.
May I have a lot of service?
Yes,
So they come in?
Yeah.
And then people come in for that.
yes. Goes back, yes.
May I have to clarify question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Last question was mine, it was Brad. I don't work in education by experience. There's a lot of audits. You know what people are tending to come and kind of anticipate where our gaps might be. Does that not happen in this space, that there's someone auditing and aware of the potential defects?
Yeah, we do. We've got a supervisor from NC RISA that comes in and we'll do trainings, and they'll say, hey, this is kind of the direction that the state's going. We need to shore this up, whether that's supplemental aids and services, your discipline, different areas of an IEP. Yeah.
So was there any awareness of those people doing those audits that these were potential violations, or is that just off the radar?
Well, this was not a typical audit. I mean, it was asked to be done by NC RISA to have them come in. Okay.
So if they feel the other comes in a similar situation,
Yeah. Yep, you might.
is that something that we're proactively looking at?
That's what we're doing right now. That's the corrective action plan part. Our teachers and NC RISA. Well, that will be NC RISA and their ancillary staff.
So we're taking no responsibility for those, even though it's not.
Well, we have to. That's our student. I mean, we just are doing a corrective action plan on that. And that's part of hopefully that will close the gap so we have that communication. Well, it's our student. We are working with NC RISA on that, okay?
So who is working with them on the team to go for ancillary only? Who is their point person?
Their point person would be their building, or their district supervisor, yes.
That'll be the last question. Go ahead.
Couple of questions.
You had to sneak two in, huh?
Well, mine's always working.
All right.
I want to give other people an opportunity. So I've heard kind of a few, I know the corrective action plan probably isn't fully developed or implemented yet.
Nope.
I've heard accountability needs to come from the teacher of record and NC Lisa ancillary service provider so far, as far as, who's the one accountable for tracking, implementing, monitoring these services. The district spent over $100,000 firing the superintendent. So there's somebody being held accountable for what? I know you're probably not going to talk about it, but.
Well, that wasn't for monitoring. That was a different situation.
This form is for the audit specifically, and that's all.
We've not limited it to just the audit. We've talked on other things.
No, we're talking about the audit and special ed.
Well, as I said earlier, if you've had questions not answered, please come on in and we'll talk.
The report that recommended Zuber's resignation, firing, whatever, non-renewal was related to special education services.
It was related, yep.
On topic for the forum tonight about special education services.
It's not about services, sir. It's about the audit we just went through. And you are invited to come and make an appointment anytime and talk with us. But that's not what this forum is about, no matter how you try to stretch it.
Do you have a second one?
And again, not always in the special education world, but you're trying to do my research. Are there any qualifications as special ed coordinator or sitting in on these heavy special ed IEP meetings? When I look at the state licensing, and maybe you fall into one of the categories of involved in the special education program, but I didn't see any special ed accreditation. So I'm kind of curious why we would have you on these heavy-duty IEPs instead of maybe somebody who's got that accreditation, because you would think the accreditation might make them more qualified.
Well, you name somebody in the district that has that and let me know.
I looked up other teachers that I know work in the special ed department. I look at their teacher certification, special ed certified. I look at your teacher certification, I believe it was history and math.
You're getting there, yeah. Yeah. I do not have a special ed certification, okay? It's not a requirement, but I have had all the coursework. I just did not choose to do my student teaching, okay? I've got the background, I've got the law, I just don't have this certification. You can't the protocol is teachers are not going to be that next layer because they've got to be responsible for their caseloads. So in the past, practice has been you either have an assistant principal, a principal, be that middleman, okay? Trust me, I didn't ask for it. I did not campaign for that. No. All right.
Excellent.
All right.
Question, I think you've done something else.
Yeah.
I've never had a kid in the special education program, I've been blessed with that, I've never had to deal with all the hardships of that, so I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. When I put my child into the school, they created an IEP or a 504, correct?
Well, not when you put them in, no. They've got you enroll your student, unless there's something that was discovered in preschool or something to that effect. They come in.
Now, if there's an issue,
If-
we can create an IEP.
Well, you're going to have to voice concerns. The school's going to have to see some things. Typically, they go, when they're that young, they go into child study, and then they evaluate that student through the, kindergarten, first grader, whenever they see the problem arise, and that's how the process starts.
And so every year that child is in the school, that IEP goes along with them.
Yep, every year.
And it's renewed, and they can make changes that are necessary.
It's not renewed, it's just you do an evaluation, a yearly eval, to update it, to make any changes. I mean, our ultimate goal is, we want every kid off an IEP by the time they leave us, yeah.
So they renew that every year, and
Yep.
then last renewed.
Evaluate it, yep,
And they can tweak those changes of the kids as they go education.
yep, yep.
So what I'm understanding here is, at our school, we have an educational side that everybody deals with, correct? But then say, just, if it's just speech or something like that, or behavioral, it's not,
Well, we
that goes through series.
Well, we deal with a lot of behavioral stuff. Typically, it's speech, OT services, things like that.
But most of that, what do you call it?
Ancillary, yep.
All of that is just.
They provide, yep, that's provided through NC.
Professionals here?
Yes, they do, yep.
So it's not something we have on staff here? It's something
No.
Do they bring them like once a week, once a month kind of a thing?
It depends on what their IEP calls for, yep.
I just kind of wanted to
All right.
clarify that, like I said.
No, thank you.
So I appreciate that.
All right,
Thank you. I think we're done.
all right. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for
Yes.
coming out.
I'm getting a little cranky, hungry. What is that called? Hangry. I'm getting a little hangry. I have to eat. Thank you so very, very much for coming out. We really appreciate it. Have a good night.
CC'd on it. Dr. Samuels was CC'd on it, and it was sent to Dr.